If you are over 60, this is not a warning about decline, it is an invitation to reclaim agency over your own biology, because the human body does not suddenly abandon strength with age, it responds, patiently and predictably, to the signals we give it. And today we know with remarkable clarity that a few deliberate movements can speak louder to your muscles, bones, and nervous system than years of passive living ever could. The slow, controlled squat deserves careful attention because it mirrors one of the most fundamental negotiations the human body performs every single day, the act of lowering oneself toward the ground and rising back up again under the constant pull of gravity, an act so ordinary that we forget how biologically complex and symbolically important it is. From a scientific perspective, this movement recruits some of the largest and most metabolically active muscles in the body, particularly the quadriceps at the front of the thighs, the gluteal muscles at the hips, and the deep stabilizers that surround the pelvis and spine. As women age, these muscles naturally lose size and strength if they are not challenged, a process known as sarcopenia, but this is not a passive or inevitable decline. The squat provides a clear mechanical signal to muscle fibers that they are still required, still useful, and still expected to generate force, and in response the body activates pathways that promote muscle protein synthesis and neuromuscular efficiency. At the same time, the bones of the hips, femur, and spine experience healthy loading, which stimulates bone-forming cells and helps preserve mineral density, directly reducing the risk of fractures that can so easily compromise independence later in life. What makes the squat especially powerful is its integration of balance, coordination, and joint awareness, forcing the nervous system to remain engaged and alert as the body moves through space. This constant dialogue between brain and muscle refines proprioception, the internal sense of where the body is, which plays a critical role in fall prevention. Beyond the physiology, there is a quieter psychological transformation taking place, because each controlled descent and rise rebuilds trust between a woman and her body. Movements that once felt uncertain or threatening become familiar again, and fear gives way to confidence grounded in sensation rather than optimism. The squat teaches patience, asking for slow breathing, careful alignment, and respect for limits, while also gently expanding those limits over time. In a broader sense, it becomes a metaphor lived through the muscles rather than the intellect, reinforcing the idea that resilience is not about avoiding the ground but about knowing you can return from it with steadiness and control, carrying forward a sense of capability that extends well beyond the exercise itself. The pushing movement, whether performed gently against a wall, a sturdy surface, or eventually the floor, holds a significance that reaches far beyond the visible muscles of the arms and chest, because it restores a pattern of force that modern life steadily erodes. Scientifically, pushing activates the pectoral muscles, the shoulders, the triceps, and the deep stabilizers of the core, creating an integrated chain of effort that teaches the body to distribute load safely and efficiently. As women move beyond 60, these muscles often weaken not because they are incapable of work, but because daily life rarely asks them to push with intention. This loss of demand leads to diminished neuromuscular signaling, slower reaction times, and reduced ability to generate force when it is suddenly needed, such as during a stumble or loss of balance. When a woman practices pushing under controlled conditions, the nervous system relearns how to recruit large motor units, including fast-twitch fibers that are essential for protective reflexes and that typically decline first with age. This reactivation improves coordination between the brain and muscles, sharpening the body's ability to respond quickly and decisively to unexpected challenges. On a structural level, pushing movements support the integrity of the shoulder joints and upper spine by strengthening the surrounding musculature, which helps maintain posture and reduces the strain placed on connective tissues. Improved posture is not merely aesthetic, it directly affects breathing mechanics by allowing the rib cage to expand more freely, enhancing oxygen intake and overall energy levels. There is also a subtle cardiovascular component, as pushing exercises elevate heart rate in a controlled way, improving circulation without excessive stress. Psychologically, the act of pushing carries profound meaning, as it reintroduces the sensation of actively creating space between the body and the environment. For many women, aging is accompanied by a gradual inward collapse, both physically and emotionally, driven by caution, fear of injury, or cultural messages about fragility. Pushing against resistance counters this narrative at a sensory level, reinforcing the experience of strength as something supportive rather than aggressive. Each repetition becomes a reminder that the arms are capable of bearing weight, that the chest can remain open, and that effort does not automatically lead to harm. Over time, this repeated exposure reshapes the brain's expectations, reducing movement-related anxiety and increasing confidence in everyday tasks such as rising from the floor, carrying objects, or bracing during a fall. The pushing movement therefore becomes not just an exercise but a form of embodied reassurance, teaching the body that it is still designed to meet resistance with calm, coordinated force and quiet self-trust. Pulling movements, whether performed with resistance bands, light weights, or even simple bodyweight actions, address a dimension of strength that is often neglected yet profoundly influential on how the body ages and how it feels to inhabit it. From a biological standpoint, pulling activates the muscles of the upper back, including the latissimus dorsi, the rhomboids, and the posterior shoulder muscles, along with the muscles that stabilize the spine. These tissues play a crucial role in counterbalancing the forward-pulling forces of gravity and habitual postures shaped by years of sitting, reading, and screen use. As women grow older, this imbalance often becomes more pronounced, leading to rounded shoulders, a forward head position, and chronic tension in the neck and upper back. Pulling movements reintroduce symmetry to the musculoskeletal system by reminding these posterior muscles of their role in holding the body upright and aligned. This restoration of balance reduces compressive stress on the cervical and thoracic spine, which can alleviate persistent discomfort and improve overall mobility. On a neurological level, pulling requires fine motor control and sustained engagement, strengthening the communication pathways between the brain and muscles that govern posture and coordination. This enhanced neuromuscular awareness improves stability during everyday activities, such as walking or reaching, where subtle postural adjustments prevent falls. There is also a circulatory benefit that unfolds gradually, as stronger back muscles support better blood flow to the spinal structures, nourishing nerves and connective tissues that depend on consistent movement for health. Beyond the measurable physiological effects, pulling carries a quiet psychological resonance, particularly for women who have spent years unconsciously collapsing inward to protect themselves or conserve energy. The act of drawing resistance toward the body fosters a sense of grounding and control, reinforcing the experience of strength as something that stabilizes rather than overwhelms. Each deliberate pull encourages the chest to open, the shoulders to settle back, and the breath to deepen, creating a physical posture that supports emotional steadiness. Over time, these repeated movements reshape how the body organizes itself at rest, making upright alignment feel natural rather than forced. The nervous system begins to associate this posture with safety and ease, reducing the background tension that often accompanies chronic pain or fatigue. In this way, pulling movements become a form of structural mindfulness, teaching the body to reclaim its verticality and balance without strain. They offer a reminder that strength is not only about pushing outward into the world, but also about drawing oneself back into alignment, cultivating a sense of inner stability that quietly supports confidence, comfort, and long-term resilience. Strength training alters the internal environment of the body in ways that are subtle yet profoundly influential, especially for women over 60, because muscle tissue functions as far more than a means of movement. From a physiological standpoint, skeletal muscle acts like a metabolic organ, communicating constantly with the endocrine system and influencing how the body manages energy, inflammation, and repair. As muscle mass declines with age, the body becomes less efficient at handling glucose, often leading to insulin resistance and unstable blood sugar levels that quietly drain energy and accelerate chronic disease. When strength training is introduced, even in modest doses, muscle fibers begin to absorb glucose more effectively, reducing the strain on insulin and stabilizing energy availability throughout the day. This shift alone can transform how a woman feels in her body, replacing fluctuations in fatigue with a steadier sense of vitality. Hormonal balance is also affected in meaningful ways, as resistance training stimulates the release of growth factors that support tissue repair, bone maintenance, and cognitive health. These signals counteract some of the hormonal changes associated with aging, not by reversing time, but by optimizing the body's remaining adaptive capacity. Inflammation, a silent driver of many age-related conditions, is gradually reduced as muscle activity promotes better circulation and the removal of metabolic waste products. This internal cleansing effect supports joint health and reduces the stiffness that often discourages movement, creating a positive feedback loop where feeling better encourages further activity. On a neurological level, strength training reinforces the brain's role in coordinating effort, improving motor planning and reaction speed, which are essential for maintaining independence and preventing injury. The cumulative effect of these changes is not dramatic in a single moment but deeply transformative over time, reshaping the body's baseline state from one of gradual decline to one of measured adaptability. There is also a philosophical dimension embedded in this biological reality, because engaging in strength training reframes aging as an active process rather than a passive fate. Each session becomes a deliberate act of communication with the body, signaling expectation rather than resignation. This expectation is met with quiet cooperation as tissues respond, systems recalibrate, and resilience slowly rebuilds from the inside out. The woman who trains begins to notice not just stronger muscles, but clearer thinking, more stable moods, and a renewed sense of connection to her physical self. Strength training, in this sense, becomes less about preserving youth and more about preserving coherence within the body, allowing its many systems to work together with greater harmony and efficiency as time continues to move forward. The psychological dimension of strength training unfolds quietly but persistently, shaping the way a woman perceives her body and her place within it as much as it shapes muscle and bone. From a biological perspective, the brain is constantly updating its internal map of the body based on sensory input, and when movement becomes limited or avoided, that map gradually shrinks, reinforcing caution and uncertainty. Strength training interrupts this cycle by providing clear, repeatable signals of capability. As muscles contract, joints move through safe ranges, and the nervous system receives confirmation that effort does not automatically lead to harm. This sensory feedback recalibrates the brain's expectations, reducing the fear-based responses that often accompany aging and replacing them with a grounded sense of trust. Over time, this trust extends beyond the training session into everyday life, influencing how a woman walks, reaches, and reacts to sudden changes in balance. Confidence, in this context, is not a motivational slogan but a neurobiological state shaped by experience. Each successful repetition reinforces neural pathways associated with control and stability, making calm, coordinated movement the default rather than the exception. There is also a meaningful impact on mood and emotional resilience, as physical exertion stimulates the release of neurotransmitters that support mental clarity and emotional regulation. These biochemical shifts can ease anxiety, reduce depressive symptoms, and improve sleep quality, creating a mental environment more conducive to curiosity and engagement with life. Beyond chemistry, there is a deeper narrative transformation taking place, particularly for women who have internalized messages about fragility or limitation with age. Strength training offers an alternative story told through sensation rather than language, one in which the body is experienced as responsive and capable rather than unpredictable or weak. This embodied understanding fosters a renewed sense of dignity, as physical strength becomes synonymous with self-respect rather than appearance. The act of showing up for the body, week after week, reinforces a relationship built on attentiveness and care rather than criticism or fear. This relationship shifts how discomfort is interpreted, making it easier to distinguish between healthy effort and true warning signals, which further enhances safety and autonomy. Over time, the accumulation of these experiences changes how aging itself is perceived, not as a narrowing of possibility but as a period that still allows for adaptation, learning, and growth. Strength becomes a quiet companion rather than a goal, supporting daily tasks with less effort and greater ease. In this way, strength training does more than build muscle or confidence, it reshapes identity, allowing a woman to inhabit her body with steadiness and self-trust, carrying forward a sense of capability that informs how she meets the world and herself each day.